Now, Pavarotti was a good friend.
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I'm your host, Pavarotti, and we're here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. Now, as a disclaimer, this channel is for entertainment purposes. These are my opinions. I'm not here to slander anyone, and I do intend to speculate. And in this video, it's time we cover something that I consider a very sensitive matter. I always try to be very respectful to the people that are involved in this case, and also the families of the people involved in this case. Now, when I talk about the actions of the mother and the stepmother, I don't do that without reservation, just simply because they are victims in this as well. Just because I believe that they potentially played a part in why this thing happened doesn't mean that I hold them responsible. And I don't think anybody should. I think that if things went down the way that I believe they went down, they're not the ones that need to be held responsible. It is the drug task force that operates in that manner that puts people in danger by imposing those types of strategies. So with that being said, in this video, I think it's important for us to dive in a little bit deeper on that 4 o'clock timeline that they say the atrocity started. All right, they say it's between 4 and 4:25. And as we do that, there's no way around it. We're going to have to talk about the 2 surviving roommates, because it was greatly determined on this 4 o'clock timeline by actions and statements of those surviving roommates. And there's a lot of questions around this that, I really don't have all the answers to. And I don't think many people out there do. Now, a little bit later on, I'm going to be putting out another video where I'm going to dive a little deeper into the subject that we'll be discussing in this one, and I'm going to do it from a little bit different point of view, though. And I'll save the details on that one until that video. But in this one, I want us to really look at this 4 o'clock timeline, where it came from, and is it legitimate? And are there any other circumstances that could have taken place that made it appear to be a 4 to 4:25 timeline? And I'm going to try to tiptoe through this one, and I'm really looking for feedback, because again, I don't think any of us have all the answers to this, but it's an important aspect of this case, and it's got to be vetted out, I believe. And I need it to be vetted out in my mind so that I can put it in the right place when I'm considering things in this case. So I'm definitely looking for comments, feedback, and perspectives on this one. So with that being said, let's get into it. We're going to start with the PCA. So we're going to start right here. And it says, Mortensen and Funk both made statements during interviews that indicated the occupants of the King Road residence were at home by 2 a.m. So that means they're saying that all the occupants are home by 2 a.m. The occupants of the house obviously are, Bethany downstairs, Dylan and Xana in the middle, and Maddie upstairs. So I'm assuming she also means the guest as well, which is Kaylee upstairs and Ethan in the middle room with Xana. So everybody's at home by 2 a.m. It doesn't say what happened between 2 and 4, but they're all at least in the house according to Mortensen and Funk by 2. And then it says, and they're all asleep, or at least in their rooms, by approximately 4 a.m. Now you'll notice I've circled 4 a.m. a lot as we go through this, because that is a number that pops up over and over. And law enforcement states that they believe the atrocity happened between 4 and 4:25. So 4 a.m. would be something that they would want to point out. However, as we go through this, some of the things I want you to be thinking about is this 4 a.m. is kind of being pushed. And is it law enforcement that's pushing it? Is it Mortensen and Funk that's pushing it? Or is it happening, just granularly? Is it just, is just happening that way? Or is it being pushed by either Mortensen or Funk or law enforcement? Because it's kind of strange. But Mortensen and Funk says everybody's in the house by 2 and they're all in their bedrooms, either asleep or at least in their bedrooms by 4. So until 4, everything is okay. And then it says this is with the exception of Kernodle, who received a DoorDash order at the residence at approximately 4 a.m. Now you'll notice it says law enforcement identified the DoorDash delivery driver who reported this information. So it doesn't say Mortensen and Funk said that Xana was out of her room at 4 a.m. getting DoorDash. It says that the DoorDash delivery driver reported that information. So according to Mortensen and Funk, they're all asleep or at least in their bedrooms. So the DoorDash delivery and Xana is separate from Mortensen and Funk's statements, which is kind of interesting. But okay, so it's 4 a.m. We know Xana's awake according to the DoorDash driver because she received her DoorDash order. Now, what's interesting is the DoorDash would have been delivered to the front door, and you would think that the DoorDash driver would knock on the door, or at the very least, maybe if Kernodle knew it was coming to the door, she would have gone downstairs, opened the door, and got it. And that's right next to Funk's bedroom door. So she's right there by the front door. Surely she would hear, Kernodle coming down the stairs and opening the door and shutting it. But she didn't, because she said everybody's in the rooms and doesn't mention anything about the DoorDash. And if it was the DoorDash driver knocking on the door, surely she would have opened the door and got the DoorDash for her, but it doesn't say that either. So the only thing that we can determine based on that is we know Dylan's awake because she's the one telling the story, and according to the DoorDash driver, Xana's awake. Now I have to think if Xana's awake getting a DoorDash order, then Ethan's probably awake as well. I mean, that's just a safe assumption. So we got at least 3 of them awake at this point. And this is 4 a.m., right, when law enforcement says things started. But then it says Mortensen stated she originally went to sleep in her bedroom on the southeast side of the second floor. Now, we could take that to mean that she originally went to sleep in her bedroom there, and then she later went to sleep there again, or she originally went to sleep in her bedroom there and later she went to sleep somewhere else. I mean, we don't know, but that originally is an interesting word in there. But here's where it gets really weird, y'all. And I just noticed this actually just a minute ago. I've already went through this thing 1,000 times and I've already marked it up, but I reread it again and some things popped out to me and I went, what the heck? And follow me as I go through this. I think you're going to have the same epiphany. It says Mortensen stated she was awoken at approximately 4 a.m. Not by the DoorDash driver though, because that didn't awaken her. But she was awakened by what she stated sounded like Gonzalez playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms. So we know Dylan's awake at 4 now. The DoorDash didn't wake her up. It was Kaylee playing with her dog upstairs, according to Mortensen, what she thought it was. Now, I know the first 100,000 times I read this, I was assuming that Mortensen was stating that she heard Kaylee playing with her dog and she was mistaken, the atrocity taking place as her playing with her dog. But that's not what is actually being described here. She's saying that she heard what she thought was Kaylee upstairs playing with the dog at 4 a.m., which means Kaylee's awake at 4 a.m. And we know that the Hyundai Elantra doesn't park until 4:06. So if Kaylee's upstairs playing with the dog, she's awake. Xana's awake getting a DoorDash order. Ethan's probably awake because he's in there with Xana. Dylan's now awake. I mean, the only people that are asleep that we guess are asleep are Maddie and Bethany. So everybody in this house, according to this, must be awake at this point. And which were located on the 3rd floor. And she doesn't say which one of the upstairs bedrooms. Was it the one that she was in with Maddie, or was it the one that, the dog was found in? We don't know. But a short time later, all right, we don't know how much longer, but a short time later, after 4 a.m., where everybody's awake, Mortensen said she heard who she thought was Gonzalez saying something to the effect of, "There's someone here." Now, a review of records obtained from a forensic download of Kernodle's phone showed this could have also been Kernodle, as her cellular phone indicated she was likely awake and using the TikTok app at 4:12 a.m. So it could have been either one, I guess. Because obviously both of them are awake, because one of them's playing with the dog and the other one's, on TikTok eating her food, according to this. But then it says Mortensen stated she looked out of her bedroom but did not see anything when she heard the comment about someone being in the house. So that was the first time she opened the door. All right, just a short time later, after 4 a.m., when she thought she heard either Kaylee or Xana say there's someone here. So she opens the door, looks out, shuts the door. Mortensen stated she opened her door a second time when she heard what she thought was crying coming from Kernodle's room. Now, she opened the door the first time, somebody's here, she shuts the door. She opens the door the second time because she hears somebody crying coming out of Xana's room. Now, she stated earlier that by 4 a.m. that they knew, by 2 a.m. they knew everybody was home. By 4 a.m. she knew everybody was in their rooms, either in their rooms awake or asleep. So she knows the only people in Xana's room is Ethan and Xana. So she hears some crying coming from Xana's room and she opens the door. She knows it's either Ethan or Xana in there crying. Mortensen then said she heard a male voice saying something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Now, she knows what Ethan's voice sounds like, so she knows Xana's in there crying, and she hears a male voice that she doesn't recognize say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Now, this doesn't affect her in any way. How is that even possible? Because what does she do after she hears a strange man that she knows not Ethan in a room where she knows it's only Ethan and Xana's crying? What does she do? She shuts her door. Because then it says, Mortensen stated she opened her door a third time after she heard the crying. But whoa. No, though. Because she opened her door a second time when she heard Xana crying. That's why she opened the door the second time. And she heard a voice saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." And then she closed the door. Now, why is it saying that Mortensen opened the door for a third time after she heard her crying? What made her open this door this third time? There wasn't anything different than the reason she opened it the second time and closed it. So this isn't adding up at all. And saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. Now, we know how this house is laid out. For somebody to get from Xana's room to the back door, if he's walking towards her and he's headed to the back door, he's going to come within just a few feet of being face to face and eyeball to eyeball with her. I mean, he could reach out and touch someone. So he's walking towards her, so she's getting a pretty dang good look at him, even though it's probably dark. But she's getting a good enough look to make this description. She described the figure as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. Now, here's what's wrong with that. Anytime you ask somebody what the description of a perpetrator that you've seen is, you're always, and I don't mean some of the time, I mean always going to get, they were approximately this tall, this size, they were either white, black, Hispanic. You don't see any type of racial declaration in there. And if she got a good enough look at him to see his bushy eyebrows, why does she not describe his hair? Where's the description of his hair? Is he wearing a cap? Is he wearing a hat? Is his hair just there for her to see? And if so, why isn't one of the number one things in a description listed? Okay, what color was his hair? Was it dark? Was it blonde? Was it short? Was it long? Was it curly? Was he bald? None of that's in here. And you will never see a description of somebody that got that good of a look at them without describing their hair or if they were wearing something over their head. It's not in here. So that description doesn't sound legitimate at all. In fact, it sounds almost scripted, like somebody told her to say what she said. And was that law enforcement? Was it somebody else that told her to say that? Did she make it up on her own? I mean, these are some very valid questions that's got to be answered at some point. And athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past Mortensen as she stood in the frozen shock phase. So he wasn't just walking towards her. He walked towards her, stood face to face with her, and then continued on past her, because that's what would have had to happen for him to get past her room to get to that back door. So he walked past her. She's still standing there at the door with the door open. And then the man walks towards the sliding glass door. Then Mortensen locked herself in her room after seeing the mail. So that means her room was never locked until that point. The first 3 times she opened the door, the third time for no reason at all, her door was unlocked the whole time. So as the perpetrator is going upstairs, downstairs, and back out, anytime as he walked past her door, he could have just turned the knob and went in and got a hold of Mortensen. But he didn't. So obviously he had no desire to go into Mortensen's room. Even looking at her face to face, he had no desire to harm her. How is that possible? Did she know him? Or is all of this made up for some reason? Did somebody put all of this in her mouth? Did somebody scare her to the point to where this is the story they told her to tell law enforcement? I don't know, but I would sure like to hear some comments on it, because this is really weird. And then Mortensen did not state that she recognized the male. She did not state that she recognized the male. Well, what did she state then? Did she state that she didn't recognize the male? Did she state that she thought she recognized the male? Because it doesn't say Mortensen did not recognize the male. It says she did not state that she recognized the male. That is a very odd statement in there. But all of this leads investigators to believe that the unaliver left the scene. Okay, so him walking towards the back door, her opening the door 3 times, that's what makes law enforcement believe that he left the scene at this time. So, what did they determine from this? Well, the combination of Mortensen's statements to law enforcement, reviews of forensic downloads of records from Funk and Mortensen's phone. Now, I've stated before that they could have easily said in here, text messages from Mortensen and Funk's phone showed this, and that would have been an easy way for them to write it. Now, it may have been just some technical review of forensic downloads, but when I read that, I think that's going into a little bit too much information about something as simple as describing text messages. I think those text messages were deleted, and reviews of downloads of their phone showed the law enforcement the text messages that occurred during the time of this atrocity. And video of a suspect video as described below, and that's when it's talking about the car, which we know that has nothing to do with it, so we'll scratch that out. That all leads investigators to believe the unalivings occurred between 4 and 4:25, which is interesting because we know the car didn't park until 4:06. It sped away at 4:20. So everybody in the house, according to this PCA now, and these witnesses' statements say that they're all awake except for maybe Mogan and Funk. So that means that, according to this, Brian Koberger went into their house. If he parked at 4:06, it takes a couple of minutes to get down there. He goes in the house at 4:08. You got Mortensen awake in her room, bouncing, opening the door 3 or 4 times, but he's going to go past that, upstairs to an awake Kaylee playing with a dog, unalive her, unalive Maddie, and Dylan doesn't hear any of this, even though, according to her, they're awake playing with a dog. So, a silent unaliving there is impossible. And then come back downstairs, go past Bethany's door, and go into an awake Xana and Ethan, unalive them silently, and then walk past Dylan and out the back door. According to this, I guess he would have had to leave the back door about 4:17, because they're going to say that he changed his clothes and got in his car and sped off by 4:20. That's not possible. And this last part here is very interesting as well. At approximately 4:17 a.m., a security camera located at 1112 King Road, a residence immediately to the northwest of 1122 King Road, picked up distorted audio, what sounded like voices or a whimper, followed by a loud thud. Now, folks, I can tell you this right now, and it's absolutely absurd that this even made it into this PCA, because anybody that tells you that they're listening to sounds on a camera and determining events that happened in an atrocity with nothing else to back it up is absolutely ridiculous. You cannot listen to sounds on a camera and determine tangible evidence of a situation. And let me give you an example of this, because some of you remember when we used to all listen to the radio in our cars before everything got all fancy and technical and you have apps on your phone to listen to music. But you'd listen to the radio. And on the radio, they would have disc jockeys. And those disc jockeys like to play games sometimes. And they would play games like Name That Sound. They would play a sound on the radio and they'd give you a phone number, and people would call in and try to guess what that sound was, and when somebody finally got it, they won a little prize. It always took people, no telling how many phone calls for them to receive before somebody answered it correctly. And everybody would have a different guess for every sound. Well, that's kind of what it's like listening to audio on a distorted audio at that, on a camera, and it sounds like they can't even tell the difference between voices or whimpers. They don't even know if this is the King Road house. It could be one of the neighbors. And it followed by a loud thud. That could have been a neighbor shutting a door. You can't determine anything from that. But it says a dog can also be heard barking numerous times starting at 4:17 a.m. Now, we don't know that this is the youngster's dog. We don't know. This could be any dog. But if it is, how come they didn't hear the dog barking before 4:17 on that camera? And I've heard people say that it's a light bulb camera and it's motion activated and all this. I don't think so. I think the camera was recording well before 4:17. It just didn't pick up anything. Now, is it possible that the back sliding door, when it was opened at 4:17, you finally were able to hear the dog barking? That's possible, but there's no way to verify that. So this camera footage of this 4:17 is totally immaterial. No way it makes it into this case. The security camera is less than 50 feet from the west wall of Kernodle's bedroom. Well, unless you caught anything on video, the security camera could be picking up the house on the other side of 1112 King Road. So all this stuff right here, I wouldn't even take any of it with a grain of salt. But going back to that, though, according to what we just read, either Mortensen's statements are a story made up by either herself, somebody told her to say it, or maybe law enforcement making it up. Because if it's factual, then we know now that almost everybody in that house was awake when this thing went down. And that throws everything into a completely different spectrum. If they're all awake, there's no way this thing was silent, and there's no way this thing was executed by one individual with a knife. That's even more ridiculous than the original thoughts of this. But what are your thoughts on it? Tell me what you think about these roommates. How could all this be put together? Do they have a part in it? I don't believe they do. Did somebody make them say this stuff? You know what I think happened. And I'm going to be doing another video here shortly where I'm going to apply the things in my theory to this same situation to see if they vet out. But I would like to hear people's feedback on all this before I do that. Folks, to be quite frank with you, the video that I just did was not what I really had in mind. As I started reading through that PCA, that again I've read 100,000 times, and I'd even read it in preparation of this video and marked it up. But let me tell you what happened. As I was recording this video, I'd actually gone through just about everything that I just discussed with y'all, and then when I played it back, I realized that I had the camera showing everything backwards. I didn't even realize it was doing that. So I had to go back through and do it again. But as I went through it the first time, and I had reread what I've read 1,000 times and marked up, all of a sudden things started just popping out to me that I'd never noticed before. If Mortensen, I mean, this is the biggest thing I say, is Mortensen is saying that she hears Kaylee upstairs playing with her dog at 4 a.m. The car hadn't parked till 4:06. That means she's awake. Now, we knew that possibly Xana's awake because of the DoorDash order, but with Xana being awake, you know Ethan is. So they're all awake, according to this, or everything that's said in this thing is fabricated. Now, that's a lot to chew on, but I would sure like to hear your thoughts on this, because this is the one part, and this is not the one part, the DoorDash driver is something that I have trouble with as well, and you know this. I still don't have the DoorDash driver. But this part of the case as well, I mean, I have my thoughts, but it's just hard to put it all together. So I would really like your your opinions on this. But please like and subscribe to the channel. Post your thoughts. Post your criticisms. Post anything you'd like to post. Until the next video, we'll go ahead and say Pavarotti is he's out.